Hello once again, everybody. Andrew Rogers here for TST, Total Sports Talk. Thank you very much for tuning in. Welcome to another week of TST. It's a pleasure to have you here, and thank you very much for tuning in. I gotta say, it's an absolute pleasure bringing these episodes to you week after week. A lot of great stuff going on, though, all around the world of sports. That's the great thing about sports. They never stop. It seems like every day there's always something different going on. And I gotta say, I love covering it just because of how much goes into it on a day-to-day basis, and how much there is always ongoing. And it seems like whenever there's something that comes and goes, goes, there's something that comes, which is great, because I'm always looking for things to fill here, because, obviously, as things are going to slow down eventually, which they do, there are moments when there's not so much going on, which I guess could be considered as a blessing in disguise. But there's got to be something to talk about. And that's the great thing about sports, that there's always something to talk about. Like, for instance, on our last episode, we talked about the Provincial Junior Hockey League. We talked about the GOGHL and the Schmaltz Cup and the Sutherland Cup. But those are now over. And, again, congrats to the Lakefield Chiefs and to the Listowel Cyclones on winning their respective championships. Very impressive. No doubt no one could take that away from them. But however, like I say, 1 season and 2 seasons come to an end. We've got to find something to fill that void here on the program week after week, TST. So what we've done is we've done some research, had some things come up, and boom, there it is. Inter-County Baseball League. This is fantastic. I mean, they're in their 100th season this year. It's fantastic. I mean, I've heard about them, but I've never really paid a whole lot of attention. I mean, on my way into work, I'll put on the radio, 570 News, for those who actually care, and I'll listen, and on the sports breaks, they'll talk about the sports and the scores from the Inter-County Baseball League, and it's quite exciting to know about this level of competition that's for a league that's been around as long as they have. So what we want to do is on the program, starting actually conveniently enough, we're going to get you caught up to speed on the latest happenings in the Inter-County Baseball League. They've had 1 weekend in the books, and they're about to get their second underway this upcoming weekend. So with that being said, here's a look at your current standings after the Week 1 schedule. You have your Barrie Baycats. They are tied with the Toronto Maple Leafs. 1 win apiece for both these clubs as they won their respective games. Barrie downing the Kitchener Panthers by a score of 3-1 in their opening. They are the defending Inter-County Baseball champions. And then you have the Toronto Maple Leafs over the London Majors by a score of 10-7. Of course, Hamilton Cardinals, Guelph Royals, Brantford Red Sox, and Burlington Herd have not played yet. But that leads us in. The schedule for this upcoming weekend is as follows. This Friday, May 11th, you got the Toronto Maple Leafs at the London Majors. That's at 7:35. On Saturday, May the 12th, there's 2 games that will be taking place. You got the Kitchener Panthers at the Burlington Herd at 1:05. And on Saturday, May the 12th as well, you got the Brantford Red Sox at the Guelph Royals. That's at 1 o'clock. And then on Sunday, there are 4 games on slate. You have Burlington at Barrie at 2, Hamilton at Brantford at 2, London at Kitchener at 2 o'clock, and then Guelph at Toronto at 2 o'clock. So, yeah, lots of exciting happenings in the Inter-County Baseball League. And like I say, we'll continue to keep you updated as to what's going on there. We'll get you caught up on the schedules and the standings week after week right here on the program TST. We shift our attention now to the World Hockey Championships, where Team Canada has gotten off to a pretty solid start at the World Hockey Championships this year. The interesting thing about the World Hockey Championships is that you have the NHL players representing their countries, and it really is become what the Olympics used to be up until this year, of course, where the NHLers didn't go to the Olympics. And it was great, but it wasn't as good as years past. And, this World Hockey Championships could really turn in to what the Olympics used to be by having that NHL representation. So let's get you caught up to speed on what's going on with your World Hockey Championships. We'll start with the Team Canada schedule. So far in the tournament, they've gotten off to a nice start. Unfortunately, in their first game, they dropped it 5-4 in a shootout loss to the United States. But they followed that up with very dominating wins over both South Korea and Denmark by scores of 10-0 and 7-1 respectively. Next up on the schedules for the Canadians look like this. You got Norway on Thursday, May the 10th. On Saturday, May the 12th at 2:15 against Finland. On Monday, May the 14th against Latvia. And then they wrap the preliminary round Tuesday, May 15th at 10:15 against Germany. Now looking at the World Hockey Championships standings, we start in Group Number A. You have Russia and Sweden. They are tied for the top spot at 9 points apiece. Now the way this breaks down is you get 3 points for a regulation win, 2 points for an overtime win, a point for an overtime loss or shootout loss, and a 0 points for a regulation loss. You have Switzerland in the third spot. They're at 6 points. Czech Republic and Slovakia at 4 apiece. France at 3, Austria at 1, and Belarus at 0. Over to the Group E standings, you have Finland in the top spot. They are undefeated. They have 9 points. USA at 8 is in second. Canada is at 7 points and in third. Latvia 2 behind at 5 points. They are in fourth. Norway at 3, Denmark at 2, Germany at 2, and South Korea at 0. The World Hockey Championships are just fascinating, and it's been tremendous hockey. And Denmark has done a fantastic job hosting this tournament, and it's been great so far. It'll be interesting to see if Canada adds any more players upcoming in this tournament. With each team that's eliminated from the NHL playoffs, they can have the option of adding players. They have room on the roster for that specific reason. And we'll talk about that more in terms of who's been eliminated from the NHL playoffs in our NHL segment. It's coming up in a little bit. But for now, like I said, World Hockey Championships, it's fantastic times right now. Team Canada looking really, really sharp, and they look to carry that momentum into their next game against Norway. That opens up our show, and we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back on the other side with our own sound, Luina Local 1059 Senior B North Stars segment. We'll be right back after this. You are watching TST, Total Sports Talk. Welcome back to the program, everybody. Andrew Rogers here for TST Total Sports Talk. Thank you very much for joining me. It's a pleasure to have you here. We've reached the point in the program now where we want to switch it over to the Ontario Senior B Lacrosse League. And more specifically, the Owen Sound Luina Local 1059 Senior B North Stars. I'm really hoping I say that sponsor right. I think I am. Luina Local 1059. They are the official major sponsor of the Owen Sound Senior B North Stars. They have incorporated themselves into the names, so that's fantastic. It's just a mouthful for me to say, but I really don't mind. It's been a pleasure covering this league and this team. But speaking of the team, they opened up their regular season with a visit to the Toronto Rock Athletic Center to take on the Oakville Titans. Sound Luina Local 1059 Senior B North Stars taking on the Oakville Titans from the Toronto Rock Athletic Center. Pick this one up in the second period, and North Stars get their first goal of the 2018 season, courtesy of Zach Thompson, who picks up a rebound off Oakville goalie Craig Wende in front to tie the score at 1. 5 minutes later, Oakville starts to take control of the game as Brett Ilbekas of the Titans will come down the floor. Nifty move to get the shot through, beating North Stars goalie Ryan Oldreeve for his first of 2 on the night. Make it 2-1 Oakville. Next, it's Brandon Slade of the Titans turning on the Jets, and with no North Stars in sight, he picks the top corner on Oldreeve for his first of 2 on the night. An absolute snipe, giving Oakville a 3-1 lead. 4-1 Oakville now, and another defensive miscue. This time, Jamal Shears gets in behind the North Stars defense. He makes no mistake, making it 5-1. Skip ahead now, 7-1 Oakville. North Stars trying to mount a comeback. Lachlan Elder gets in alone. He buries his first of the season to cut the deficit to 7-2. He outwaits Wende, showing excellent patience. 21 seconds later, scramble in front of the Titans net, finds the stick of Matt McLeod. He puts it in behind Wende, his first of 2 on the night. 7-3 Oakville. 7-4 now with time running out in the second period. Lachlan Elder dashes in all alone, tries to beat the clock, and does with just 2 seconds remaining, cutting the Oakville lead in half, making it 8-4 going into the third and final period. But Oakville would put the game away in the third frame. Now 10-4 Oakville, and with just under 8 to play, it's the Titan goaltender Craig Wende airmailing it to his streaking Brandon Slade, who gets in behind everyone, beating Ryan Oldreeve for his second goal of the game and fourth point in the contest, as the Oakville Titans down the Owen Sound Luina Local 1059 Senior B North Stars. 11-5 was the final. Matt McLeod and Lachlan Elder both scored 2, while Zach Thompson has a 2-point night with a goal and an assist for the North Stars, while Cree Blakely scores 2 for Oakville, and both Kyle Pereira and Josh Jubinville both record a goal and 2 assists in the victory for the Titans. So yeah, a heartbreaker for the Owen Sound Senior B Luina Local 1059 North Stars. They drop a tough one in their opening contest, 11-5 to the Oakville Titans, in a scrappy affair. But Oakville eventually ending up coming on top. They really broke it out in the second period. There, they scored a ton of goals right when the North Stars made it 1-1, and next thing you knew, Oakville really turned on the Jets and blew this thing wide open. And Owen Sound, unfortunately, weren't able to keep up, trailing 8-4 going into the third period. And it was just a continued onslaught from there, with Oakville really padding the lead, and it was too much and too many for Owen Sound Senior B North Stars to come from behind them on. Now, looking at your weekend scoreboard, it goes like this. We had the Kitchener Velocity go up against the Six Nations Rivermen. And they were defeated, Six Nations winning their second contest already this year in a 6-4 victory over Kitchener. The second game going was also on Saturday at 7 o'clock at the Robert E. Young Complex between the Ennismore James Gang and the Brooklyn Merchants. Ennismore coming out on top 13-8 after dropping their first contest to Six Nations 13-11 back on April the 28th. And then, of course, you had the Oakville Titans defeating the Owen Sound Senior B North Stars 11-5 in the game on Sunday, which we've talked about. Looking ahead now to your schedule for this upcoming weekend, you have the Kitchener Velocity visiting the Oakville Titans, they're hosting the Oakville Titans at the Waterloo Memorial Rec Complex. That goes Saturday, May the 12th at 7. Also on Saturday, May the 12th at 7 o'clock at the Robert E. Young Complex, the building of the Ennismore James Gang. They will host the Owen Sound Senior B North Stars in the first of two, back-to-back this Saturday and Sunday as well. The Sunday game is at 2 o'clock between Ennismore and Owen Sound. And you also will have Kitchener will host the Brooklyn Merchants at the Waterloo Memorial Rec Complex. That goes at 7. And then the Oakville Titans are on the road, they're at home again against the Six Nations Rivermen. They welcome them in again on Sunday, May the 13th at 7 o'clock at the Toronto Rock Athletic Center. So, and yes, of course, your standings as it stands right now, like I say, you got Six Nations Rivermen. They're 2-0. They have 4 points on the year. Ennismore James Gang, they're at 1-1. 2 points for them. Oakville Titans are at 1-0. 2 points for them. And then you have the Owen Sound North Stars, Kitchener Velocity, and the Brooklyn Merchants all at a loss apiece for no points. But there's a lot of season left, and we look forward to covering every single bit of it on the program right here on TST. Like I say, it's a tough start for the Owen Sound Luina Local 1059 Senior B North Stars. They drop a tough one. Oakville Titans beating them 11-5 in the season opener for both teams. But again, they got a really, really tough upcoming test this weekend. Anytime you play a back-to-back, it's tough. But anytime you got to do it on the road, it's an even more difficult task. And that's what lies ahead for them as they take on the Ennismore James Gang in the first of two on Saturday, May the 12th. And then on Sunday, May the 13th at 2 o'clock at the Robert E. Young Rec Complex. So yeah, it should be a lot of fun, and we'll get you caught up to speed on all the happenings from this upcoming week on next week's program. So look forward to that. We're going to take a break, and we're going to come back with the OHL report. We'll be right back after this. You are watching TST, Total Sports Talk. Welcome back to the program, everybody. Andrew Rogers here for TST Total Sports Talk. Thank you very much for joining me. It's a pleasure to have you guys here. Of course, we talk now about the Ontario Hockey League and its developments. We're coming right down to the wire here. It seems like the Memorial Cup, 100th anniversary of the Memorial Cup is right around the corner, which it is. It will start on the May 2-4 long weekend, which is fast approaching. We're only a couple weeks away, so very excited about that. Anytime you can get an extra day off work, am I right? But yes, we want to first inform you. Actually, we're going to introduce. We're going to give you a little bit of coverage as well on the happenings in the Quebec Major Junior League, and as well as the Western Hockey League, which combined makes up the Canadian Hockey League, the CHL, and their CHL tournament officially is the Memorial Cup, which they've done 100 years now. So it'll be held in Regina this year, the home of the Regina Pats out of the Western Hockey League, after being held in Windsor last year, Windsor Spitfires, the Ontario Hockey League. But yes, we're going to get you caught up right now on the OHL and the OHL bracket as it stands right now. Where we left off was just before the series has gotten underway, and we are 3 games in, and the Hamilton Bulldogs actually carry a surprising 2-1 series lead at this point after a Game 1 victory, 4-3 in overtime. Very impressive victory on the road for Hamilton in the opener. They were Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds with a little bit of a pushback in game number 2, doubling up the Bulldogs 4-2 was the final there. And then in game 3 saw the Hamilton Bulldogs outshoot the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds at home at the First Ontario Centre. 6-5 was the score in that one to give them a 2-1 series lead. Very surprising at this point, but Hamilton will take it, no doubt. The next game in this series, game number 4, goes tonight at 7 o'clock in Hamilton. Game 5 will then go on Friday, May the 11th, back in the Sioux at 7:07. Game 6, if necessary, will be a 2 p.m. matinee affair on Sunday, May the 13th in Hamilton at the First Ontario Centre. And then, if necessary, a Game 7 will decide it all Monday, May 14th at 7:07 in Sault Ste. Marie if it goes the distance. Now, like I said, we want to take a look at your Western Hockey League as the bracket stands. As you can see here, we had here's how we got to the point we're at now. Everett defeating Seattle 4-1 to move on to the second round. You had Portland upend Spokane, the Portland Winterhawks. They downed the Spokane Chiefs 4-3 to move on. You had Victoria over Vancouver 4-3, and you had the Tri-City Americans over the Kelowna Rockets 4-0. So then Victoria then would take on Tri-City. They would falter in 4 straight games, moving Tri-City into the Western Conference Final, where they would meet the Everett Silvertips. They defeated the Portland Winterhawks 4-1, and they would meet Tri-City in the West Final, where they would move on in that series, Everett, 4-2, much to the thanks of Carter Hart. He has been absolutely unbelievable for the Everett Silvertips. And then on the other side of it, you had Moose Jaw going up against Prince Albert, and they won 4-3 in that series to move on to the second round. You had the Swift Current Broncos defeating the Regina Pats, the host Memorial Cup team, 4-3 to move on to the second round. You had the Lethbridge Hurricanes. They move on 4-1 over Red Deer. And then you had the Brandon Wheat Kings over the Medicine Hat Tigers 4-2 to move on to the second round there. Brandon would then take on Lethbridge. Lethbridge Hurricanes beating them 4-1 and moving on to the East Final, where they would take on the Swift Current Broncos, who upended the Moose Jaw Warriors 4-3. And so you had Swift Current against Lethbridge, and Swift Current downing them 4-2 to get to the final, which then sees Everett Silvertips against the Swift Current Broncos. Now, with everything that happened in Humboldt, you can only imagine that Swift Current Broncos have a huge heart to play for in this series against the very powerful Everett Silvertips. Now, they are through 3 games in this series. You have the Swift Current Broncos actually out in front in this series, 2-1. They would lose. They would falter in the first game at home. Everett winning 2-1, and then Swift Current taking the next 2 at home in game 2, 4-3 victory in overtime, and then you had Swift Current taking the game number 3 as well, 3-2 in overtime. Like I said, they lead this series 2-1. Switching over to the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League now. We are all the way at the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League final, and it features the Blainville-Brosson Armada. I hope I said that right. And it also features the Acadia Bathurst Titan matchup of 1 versus 2. This series is also 3 games in. We have Acadia ahead in this series 2-1 over Blainville. Blainville taking the first game 4-1, while Acadia struck back in the next two, taking it 4-0 and 5-2 respectively. Now, the thing of note with the MasterCard Memorial Cup schedule, so it is as follows. Round robin, game number 1 will go between the OHL and the Regina Pats, the OHL champion, mind you, on Friday, May the 18th at 8 o'clock. The second game in the round robin will go between the Western Hockey League and the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League on Saturday, May the 19th at 2 o'clock. Round robin game number 3 will take place between the Regina Pats and the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League champ on Sunday, May the 20th at 5 o'clock. Game 4 will be between the Western Hockey League champion and OHL champion on Monday, May 21st at 6. Then round robin game 5 will be the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League champ against the OHL champ on Tuesday, May the 22nd at 8 o'clock. Game 6 then would be Regina at the Western Hockey League champ on Wednesday, May the 23rd at 8. They would have a tiebreaker if necessary on Thursday, May 24th at 6 o'clock. The semifinal go Friday, May 25th at 8, and the championship would then go on Sunday, May the 27th at 5 o'clock. So the Memorial Cup is soon approaching, and we can't wait. Regina will play a huge host in this tournament, I believe, in the Memorial Cup. And again, everything that's gone down between, like with the Humboldt Broncos situation, you can only imagine that there will be a lot of heavy hearts come the Memorial Cup when it's held in Regina, Saskatchewan, for the top prize in the Canadian Hockey League. It should be a lot of fun, and we continue to cover it the rest of the way home. And once the Memorial Cup starts, we'll be guaranteed to cover that as well. We're going to take a quick break here, and we'll come right back with your NHL report. Stick around for that. You are watching TST, Total Sports Talk. Welcome back to the program, everybody. Andrew Rogers here for TST Total Sports Talk. Thank you very much for joining me. It's a pleasure to have you here. We reached the point in the program now we want to talk about the National Hockey League situation. Of course, first, what we want to do, though, is update you on the TST NHL Playoff Bracket Challenge standings as it stands right now. You have Blake B in the lead at 195. Mike F is at 185. He trails by 10 for second. Paul I is at 160. Rob B at 160. You have Andrew C at 155. Joey A at 150. Brad C is at 150. AR's second sheet is at 145. Joshua C is at 140. That rounds out, I believe, that puts you to 9, and then Jesse T has you at 10th at 140. Chad S is at 135. Jessica R at 130. Sean R at 125. It's a log jam from there between Brandon G, Ethan H, Joseph C, Butch C. They all have 125. Jordan M is at 115. Jody C at 110. Dave B at 110. Andrew S at 110. Chris H at 110. John A at 110. Mike S, number 2, is at 105, and Julie B at 100. The rest of the way there, I don't believe, has a shot. Now, the way this bracket schedule works is you have to pick the winner of the series. You get the point if you get it correct, or you get a certain amount of points if you get it correct. You also get the correct amount of wins for that team to advance, and you would also get correct amount of points, bonus points, if the opponent also got the correct amount of games that you predicted for the entirety of the series. Now, if you should pick your team to move ahead, but their opponent in the next round is not the opponent that it actually happens to be, and you pick a team to advance then of one of the two teams in that second round that you then pick to advance, if they do advance in actuality, you would still get points for them advancing to the next round, which is, I know it's complicated. I mean, it's the first time I've run one of these, and I like to think I'm adjusting on the fly, but I think it's gone pretty smoothly so far, and I've certainly had a lot of fun, and it's actually made these playoffs quite exciting. Not that they needed my help for that, but anyways, I digress. First series we look at as we pull up the bracket here in the NHL Playoffs 2018 version. Our first series is actually the only series of the second round that is not yet completed, and that is between the Nashville Predators and the Winnipeg Jets. This series is deadlocked at 3-game apiece and destined for game number 7, Thursday, May the 10th. It's at 8 o'clock, and it's in Nashville. Nashville earned the right by winning the President's Trophy as the top team in the NHL and winning the Central Division against the over the number 2 Central team, the Winnipeg Jets. So that earned them the home ice advantage for this crucial game, game number 7. They have been all over the place, real back and forth. This has been an incredible series. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Pekka Rinne from the Nashville Predators, who stopped 32 in game number 6 for the shutout, a 4-0 victory for the Preds to push it to game 7 in their barn, and it should be a real dandy on Thursday at 8 o'clock in Nashville for game number 7. They will face the Vegas Golden Knights. That's right, the Vegas Golden Knights. They advance against the San Jose Sharks in 6 games. They win this series 4-2. It is the second consecutive series for the Vegas Golden Knights, in which case they've won this series by starting the series with a shutout and ending this series with a shutout. That's right, bookending the situation with a shutout. In round number 1, it was against the LA Kings. They had a shutout in game number 1. They had a shutout in game number 4 when they swept the LA Kings out of the first round. They move on. They go to the San Jose Sharks for round number 2, and they shut them out 7-0 in game number 1 and shut them out 3-0 in game number 6 to clinch the series 4-2. This series had a little bit of everything, but it's the Vegas Golden Knights in their inaugural season. They keep the dream alive, and they will move on to the to the Western Conference Final, where they will await the winner of the Nashville Predators Winnipeg Jets series. Switching over now to your Eastern Conference second round. We have our combatants in the Eastern Conference Final, but first we have the Washington Capitals, Pittsburgh Penguins, and for the first time since 1998, the Washington Capitals will compete in the NHL's playoffs third round. That's right, folks. Finally, for Alex Ovechkin, he has conquered Sidney Crosby, and the Capitals will be advancing thanks to a 2-1 overtime victory in game number 6 that saw Evgeny Kuznetsov strip the puck off of Sidney Crosby and poke it to Alex Ovechkin, who would then headman to a streaking Kuznetsov, who would split the Penguin defense and backhand it through the helpless legs of Matt Murray to clinch the series in 6 games for the Washington Capitals. They win the series 4-2 and will take on the Tampa Bay Lightning, who upended the Boston Bruins in 5 games. That's right, folks. Tampa Bay, after dropping the first game against the Boston Bruins 6-2, they would win the next 4 by scores of 4-2, 4-1, 4-3 in game number 4, and then 3-1 in game number 5. This team is hungry. This team has a lot of momentum going right now, and this team looks poised for a long run all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals. But like I said, if anybody has a say in it, it's whether or not this team can actually win the Stanley Cup. It is the Washington Capitals, and we know that series right now. This is the way it'll shake down. Tampa Bay, Washington. Tampa has home ice as they finished first in the Eastern Conference, so they will have home ice for this Game 7 series. It'll get underway Friday, May the 11th at 8 o'clock in Tampa Bay, with Game 2 going Sunday, May the 13th, also at 8 in Tampa Bay. Game 3, as the series shifts to Washington, will go Tuesday, May the 15th, also at 8. Thursday, May 17th, will go at 8 o'clock in Washington for Game number 4. Game 5, if necessary, is Saturday, May the 19th at 7:15 in Tampa. Game 6, if necessary, Monday, May 21st at 8 o'clock in Washington. And then finally, if necessary, Game 7 would go Wednesday, May the 23rd at 8 o'clock in Tampa Bay. On the west side, of course, we know that the Vegas Golden Knights will represent one half of the Western Conference Final, with either Nashville or Winnipeg getting the second half of that matchup. What we also know is that the winner of the Nashville Predators Winnipeg Jets series will get home ice in this Western Conference Final. So here's the schedule, depending on where it ends up. Saturday, May the 12th at 7 o'clock will either be in Nashville or Winnipeg for Game number 1. Game number 2 would then go in either Nashville or Winnipeg on Monday, May the 14th at 8 o'clock. The series will then shift to Vegas for Games 3 and 4. Game 3 goes Wednesday, May the 16th at 9, while Game 4 goes Friday, May the 18th at 8 o'clock. On Sunday, May the 20th, Game number 5 will be a midday afternoon game at 3 o'clock in Winnipeg or Nashville. Game 6, if necessary, will go Tuesday, May the 22nd at 9 o'clock in Vegas. And then in Game 7, if necessary, will go Thursday, May the 24th at 8 o'clock in either Nashville or Winnipeg. So yes, not only is the NHL in full swing with this NHL playoff thing and with their trying to crown a Stanley Cup champion for another season, but their farm clubs are also in the thick of their playoff series. And we'd like to introduce a little bit of coverage into that as we pull up your bracket now. And it looks like this: the final 8 is set. You had the Rockford Ice Hogs down the Chicago Wolves on the west side in a 3-0 series in the first round, which of the AHL playoffs is a best of 5. So Rockford moving on. They take on the Manitoba Moose in the second round after Manitoba upended the Grand Rapids Griffins 3-2 in that series. And on the Pacific realm, you had the Tucson Roadrunners over the San Jose Barracuda 3-1 in their series to move on to the second round. Well, they will take on the Texas Stars, who upended the Ontario Reign 3-1 in their series. Over on the east side, the Lehigh Valley Phantoms upended the Providence Bruins 3-1 in their best of 5 to move on to the second round, where they will take on the Charlotte Checkers after they downed the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins 3-0 in their first round series. Over in the north, finally, you have the Toronto Marlies. They downed the Utica Comets 3-2 to move on to the second round, where they will take on the Syracuse Crunch after they upended the Rochester Americans 3-0 in their series. As far as Toronto and Syracuse go, their series is actually completed already, with Toronto Marlies winning in a 4-0 sweep and advancing to the Eastern Conference Final. As far as the other series go, you have the Rockford Ice Hogs and the Manitoba Moose. They are 2 games into their series, with Game 3 going tonight at 7 o'clock in Rockford. The Rockford Ice Hogs leading this series 2-0. As far as the Tucson Roadrunners and the Texas Stars are concerned, they are 3 games into their series. The Texas Stars leading this series 2-1 after victories of 2-1. After dropping game number 1 to the Tucson Roadrunners 2-1 in overtime, they bounced back with 2 wins, 4-1 and 5-4 in overtime. Game 4 of this series goes tonight at 7 o'clock in Texas. Switching over to the east side, like I said, Lehigh Valley Phantoms and the Charlotte Checkers are in the matchup in the second round. This series is through 3 games that has Lehigh Valley Phantoms out in front 2-1 in this series. They won the first game 2-1, dropping the second 6-0, and winning the third game 5-1. This series has a little bit of everything thus far. Game 4 in this series goes tonight, Wednesday, May the 9th, at 7 o'clock in Charlotte, between the Phantoms and the Checkers. And then finally, as mentioned, the Marlies defeating the Crunch 4-0 in a series sweep after defeating them 6-4, 2-1 in a double overtime Game 2 victory, then downing them 7-1 in Game 3 with the writing on the wall. They downed them in Game 4, 2-1, to clinch this series in a sweep, and they now await the winner of the Lehigh Valley Phantoms and the Charlotte Checkers. So like I say, the AHL playoffs is full swing. We already have our one of our Eastern Conference final representatives in the Toronto Marlies, and although the other series looked prone to go a little while, so the Marlies could be looking at some rest between now and then. But that could be a benefit. It could also be a disadvantage. They could get rusty. You never really know. But it's fun, and we're going to continue to cover it right here on TST, Total Sports Talk. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come back on the other side with the NBA report right here on TST. Stick around. You are watching TST, Total Sports Talk. Welcome back to the program, everybody. Andrew Rogers here for TST Total Sports Talk. Thank you for joining me as always, and I'm hoping that you're enjoying the episode thus far. Reached the point in the program now where we want to talk about the NBA and Toronto Raptors in tough against the Cleveland Cavaliers. They were already down 1-0 in their best of 7 series and look to strike back in game number 2. It was the Raptors and the Cleveland Cavaliers from the Air Canada Centre in Toronto for game number 2. Raptors looking to bounce back after a Game 1 loss. However, it was not to be on this night. Cleveland dominating the Raptors 128-110 was the final. LeBron James was an absolute beast on this night. dropping 43 points. He added 14 assists and 8 rebounds in the win, while Kevin Love put up 31 and 11 rebounds in the victory. J.R. Smith chipping in with 15, Jeff Green with 14, and George Hill with 13 for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Toronto Raptors, no match for the Cavs on this night. DeMar DeRozan would lead the team in scoring. He had 24 points, while Kyle Lowry put in 21 and 8. Jonas Valanciunas with 16 and 12. Fred VanVleet with 14 and CJ Miles with 8. But all in all, not enough on this night. Cleveland proving to be too strong as they take the opening 2 games at the Air Canada Centre and lead this series 2-0. Raptors would then go to the Quicken Loans Arena in Cleveland, Ohio for game number 3 of this best-of-7 series, with Cleveland ahead 2-0, and they would lose a heartbreaker in this one. Game number 3 at 105. 103 score was the final. Raptors, unfortunately, were not able to come out with a victory in a very, very crucial game number 3. LeBron James, what can you say? 38 points, 7 assists, 6 rebounds. He had 36 points when the Raptors tied it up on an OG Anunoby 3 late in the game with 8 seconds left. Cavs come all the way down the floor, led by LeBron James. He goes from one side of the court to the other, hits a midair off the glass bank shot at the buzzer to seal the victory for the Cavs and give them a 3-0 series lead. The biggest story in this one is DeMar DeRozan. He was benched for the rest of the game in the third quarter. After only 3 points in the first half, he would finish with 8. Kyle Lowry lead the Raptors in scoring with 27 points and 7 assists. Over on the Cleveland side, you had Kevin Love, who had a big night again. 21 points, 16 boards for the Cavs. Like I said, they have a 3-0 stranglehold and look to sweep away the Raptors in game number 4. Game number 4 would then go this past Monday at the Quicken Loans Arena in Cleveland, Ohio. Cleveland blasting the Toronto Raptors. I can't emphasize that enough. 128-93 was the score. Cleveland sweeping away the first-place Raptors. They win the series 4-0. Cleveland now owns a 10-game winning streak in the playoffs against the Raptors. It is the 3rd consecutive time that the Cavs have eliminated the Raptors in the postseason. LeBron James was once again at his best. 29 points, 8 rebounds, 11 assists, while Kevin Love put on 23 and 6. Kyle Korver with 16, J.R. Smith with 15, and George Hill with 12 points and 5 assists. On this night, Jonas Valanciunas led the Raptors in scoring with 18 points and 5 boards, but it was not enough. Raptors just not getting enough from their core guys, which would ultimately lead to their downfall as they are swept at the hands of the Cleveland Cavaliers. Looking at the rest of your NBA matchups in the second round, as we know our combatants for at least 3 of the series. We know there are combatants for the Western Conference Final and half of the Eastern Conference Final. First, we want to look at how the teams got there. For our first matchup is Houston Rockets and the Utah Jazz. We had the Houston Rockets come out on top in this series 4-1 after victories in game number 1, 110-96, and victories in games 3, 4, and 5, 113-92, 187, and 112-102. They were a very powerful team out all throughout the season, and they proved it in this round against the Utah Jazz as they move on to the second round, where they will take on the Golden State Warriors. No surprise here. Golden State winning this series in 5. Really one pushback game by the New Orleans Pelicans, a 119-100 victory at home in game number 3, but it was otherwise all Golden State in this series. As like I said, they advance in 5. It'll be them versus Houston. We'll talk about that in a moment. First, over to the east side, you got the Boston Celtics and the Philadelphia 76ers. This series is the only one currently still underway in the NBA's second round, as this series is split right now, has the Celtics out 3-1. They had a chance to clinch this past Monday, but fell 103-92 at the hands of the 76ers. That's where we're at right now. Like I said, 103-92 was the final in game number 4, and the game number 5 goes tonight in Boston at 8 o'clock. And like I said, finally, the Raptors and the Cavaliers. Raptors falling 4-0 at the hands of the Cleveland Cavaliers, and now they await the Boston Celtics. In terms of what we know from the Houston Rockets Golden State Warriors Western Conference Final, the schedule is set. This series will get underway Monday, May the 14th at 9 o'clock in Houston, as they have home court advantage after finishing first in the Western Conference and in the NBA with a league best 65-17 record. Game 2 will go Wednesday, May the 16th, also in Houston at 9 o'clock. Sunday, May the 20th at 8 o'clock in Golden State for Game 3. Tuesday, May 22nd at 9 in Golden State for Game 4. Game 5, if necessary, Thursday, May the 24th at 9 in Houston. Saturday, May the 26th for Game 6, if necessary, at 9 in Golden State. And then Monday, May the 28th at 9 in Houston for Game 7, if necessary. And again, at this point, we don't know when the series will be series will be announced. I imagine it'll be near or at the conclusion of the Boston Celtics Philadelphia 76ers series. But we'll keep you posted on that next week on the program, TST, Total Sports Talk. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back with our Major League Baseball story. Stick around for that. You are watching TST, Total Sports Talk. Welcome back to the program, everybody. Andrew Rogers here for TST Total Sports Talk. Thank you very much for joining me. It's a pleasure to have you here. Hope you guys have enjoyed the program thus far. We've reached a point in the program now where we want to talk about the Major League Baseball story. The Toronto Blue Jays, let's wrap their last week. First, it was the Blue Jays and the Minnesota Twins. Blue Jays shut out for the first time this season. Marcus Stroman drops to 0-4 on the season, allowing 2 runs in 7 innings. Meanwhile, Fernando Romero gets the win in his Major League debut, striking out 5 in 5 2/3 innings pitched. Jays fall 4-0 in the finale of the 3-game set against Minnesota. Jays would then open a 3-game set, Jays would then play a makeup doubleheader. The first game of that series was the doubleheader, a 13-11 victory in 11 innings for the Blue Jays. Two teams combined for 15 pitchers, 24 runs, 35 hits. Toronto prevails 13-11. Yangervis Solarte goes 5 for 6 with 6 RBIs and a grand slam in the victory for the Blue Jays. Jays would then fall in the second half of the doubleheader, 13-4 at the hands of the Cleveland Indians. Indians use a 9-run fifth to crush the Jays. Adam Plutko strikes out 6 in 7 1/3 inning, while Joe Biagini was tagged with a loss, allowing 6 earned runs on 10 hits in 4 1/3 innings pitched. Jays would then start a 3-game set in Tampa Bay against the Tampa Bay Rays. Rays starter Andrew Kittredge was pulled after 2 innings, giving way to Ryan Yarbrough, and the rookie then baffled the Jays, allowing 1 hit in 5 innings of relief, striking out 4. Johnny Field and Brad Miller going deep in the game for the Rays, in the victory 6-2 was the final. Blue Jays would then continue their 3-game set with the Rays. Aaron Sanchez walking 4 in 3 2/3 innings. Jays getting home runs from Teoscar Hernandez and Lourdes Gurriel Jr. But it was not enough on this night. Rays prevailing over the Toronto Blue Jays 5-3 was the final. Jays would then wrap their 3-game set with the Rays, and they would avoid a sweep as Kevin Pillar scored on Rays reliever Alex Colom's wild pitch in the top of the 9th to score the winning run as the Jays snapped a 3-game losing streak. Jays are off Monday before starting a 3-game set at the Rogers Center in against the Seattle Mariners. And like I said, in that game, Canadian James Paxton, throwing only the second no-hitter thrown by a Canadian on Canadian soil. He struck out 7 while walking 3 in a 5-0 Seattle victory over the Jays. Marcus Stroman falling to 0-5 on the season. He allowed all 5 earned runs. Now, as far as the Major League Baseball standings go, we look at the American League. We start in the American League. The AL East has Boston out in front, 25-10. They are tied with the Yankees at 25-10. Jays are at 19-17. Tampa Bay at 15-18, and Baltimore at 8-27. Over in the AL Central, you have Cleveland at 17-18, Minnesota at 15-17, Detroit at 15-20, and Kansas City at 12-23. You got the Chicago White Sox at 9-24. In the AL West, you have Houston at 23-15, LA Angels at 21-14, Seattle at 20-14, Oakland at 18-18, and Texas at 14-24. Over in the National League in the NL East, you have Atlanta at 20-14 leading the way, Philadelphia at 20-15, Washington 20-17, Mets at 18-16, and Miami at 13-22. In the NL Central, you have St. Louis at 20-14, Milwaukee 21-15. Pittsburgh 20-16. Chicago Cubs 18-15. Cincinnati at 9-27. In the NL West, you have Arizona at 24-11. Colorado at 21-15. San Francisco at 19-17. LA Dodgers at 15-20. And San Diego at 13-24. For your Toronto Blue Jays' upcoming schedule, it looks like this. They continue their 3-game set with the Seattle Mariners on Wednesday. Jaime Garcia goes up against Wade LeBlanc. Then on Thursday, they wrap the series. J.A. Happ against Mike Leake. On Friday, May 11th, they open a 3-game set at the Rogers Center against the visiting Boston Red Sox. It'll be Aaron Sanchez versus Chris Sale in the opener. On the second game, it'll be Marco Estrada. He'll go up against a starter to be named later. And then in the finale, it'll be Marcus Stroman against Drew Pomerantz. And then the following week, next week, on Tuesday, they open a 2-game set, inter-conference or inter-series or whichever. It's where they play a National League team. They go up against the Mets starting Tuesday, May the 15th. It'll be the projected starters for that one are Jaime Garcia and Jason Vargas. That'll go at 7:10, and then they'll play the second game on Wednesday, May the 16th at 1:10. That has been all for your Toronto Blue Jays report. We'll be right back to wrap the show on the other side of the break. Stick around. You are watching TST, Total Sports Talk. Welcome back to the program, everybody. Andrew Rogers here for TST Total Sports Talk. I just want to take this moment to thank everybody for watching this week's episode of TST. It's been a pleasure to have you here, and it's been a pleasure for me to bring this show to you this week. And thank you very much for watching, and make sure to tune in again next week, right here on TST Total Sports Talk. I am your host, Andrew Rogers, signing off, saying so long, and we'll see you next week.